Hello and welcome to our webinar, Online Fundraising with the Soapbox Engage Donations app. Over the next few minutes, we're going to be sharing some of the essential features and functionality of our Donations app. With the Donations app, you're able to easily create and manage online donation forms, allowing folks to donate to your organization or cause. Today, we'll be walking through details of what that looks like, as well as how you can create donation forms through the Donations app. By way of introduction, my name is Brad Grahowski. I'm the Director of Support Services here at PicNet. We're the company behind the Soapbox Engage suite of online apps. Soapbox Engage, to sum it up in a nutshell, is a platform that allows you to raise more money while you're changing the world. Now, we do that through a number of different apps that includes our Donations app, which we're talking about today, which allows you to fundraise online, and it also includes a peer-to-peer fundraising add-on. We've got our Events app so that you can accept event registrations for the activities that you're putting on. We have a Classes app, which is really more of a robust version of the Events app if you have a full course catalog that you're looking to get registrations for. We have our Forms app, which allows you to easily collect data from online users and push that data into Salesforce. We also have our Directories tool, which does the exact opposite of the Forms tool, allowing you to create queries easily without any code that pulls data from Salesforce and displays it on the front end of your site. We've got an e-commerce app called Shop that allows you to sell widgets and wares, subscriptions, and memberships all online. We've got our Petitions app that will allow you to collect signatures online in support of your cause or advocacy, and our Actions app, which is sort of a sister to the Petitions app. It's another advocacy app that allows your site visitors to send messages directly to decision makers. We've got our Website Portals feature. Now that allows you to grant user login access to visitors. That gives them a personalized experience of your Soapbox Engage instance and opens up some superpowers of all these other apps in interacting with those logged in users. We've got our Soapbox Mailer Salesforce native app that allows you to send mass emails directly from within Salesforce. And then finally, we do offer a full content management system as part of Soapbox. So if you ever want to have your full website hosted on a Soapbox site, you could elect to have that as well. All right, let's get to the task at hand and look at our Donations app. Let's start things out by taking a look at what a donations form looks like on the front end of your Soapbox site. So you can see here we've got a donations form titled Donate Today. That's pretty creative, I know. And you see we've got a little bit of intro text. You'll see we have different payment levels or different donation levels. Now this is something you're going to be able to customize. You're going to be able to set your own amount buttons. And you can see that I have the option to make a one-time donation or a monthly donation. And you'll be able to set this so that you can switch back and forth with a toggle as we have here, or they can both be displayed at the same time, depending on what you feel is going to be the most effective with your donor base. We collect the contact information here, and this contact information is going to be sent over to Salesforce if you're taking advantage of the Salesforce integration. You'll see you can offer to accept a newsletter sign up in conjunction with the donation, and you can offer to let folks donate in honor or in memory of someone. And if you opt to turn that on, you'll see when they click the button, there'll be a form where they can enter the information for the person they are honoring or the donation is in memory of. And then you'll see we have the payment form down here with all of the major credit cards accepted, as well as PayPal being an additional option. And we're going to get all of their credit card and their billing information. And then finally, you're going to be able to, if you desire, allow them to opt to cover the transaction fees for the donation. And you can set the percentage of that transaction fee. So if it's 2% or 3%, whatever it is that your payment processor is charging you, you can opt to let your donors pick up the difference of that cost. And then you'll see there's the total amount here, and then they can click the Make a Payment button at the bottom, which is going to submit the donation and generate the transaction. And we'll see once we get into the administrator end of this what it looks like once they've done that. But they'll get a confirmation email, and they'll be taken to a confirmation page after they've clicked the button. All right, so let's take a look at what things look like on the backside and how you create and manage Soapbox donation forms. All right, so once you've logged into the administrator of your Soapbox account, you're going to be taken to the control panel or the admin panel, and it's going to look something like this. Now you'll notice we have quick boxes here for each one of the apps. In your case, you probably won't have every quick box. This particular demonstration site has all of the apps installed, so we're seeing all of the quick boxes here. You'll probably see a selection of them instead of all of them, depending on what you've opted to use. Today, we're primarily going to be focusing on the donation pages quick box. But before we dive into that, there's a couple things I want to show you. And the first one is how to connect your Soapbox site to your Salesforce account, presuming you are going to take advantage of that Salesforce integration. So to do that, all you need to do is click the salesforce.com's setting panel here to slide it open. You're going to select My Salesforce account, and once you've selected that, you're going to enter the username, password, and security token for the Salesforce user that you've determined is going to be the user that Soapbox will log into Salesforce to share data. You'll then click the Save Salesforce Account Settings button, of course. And the other thing I wanted to show you is how to connect your Soapbox site to your payment processor. And that's going to be found in the payment processor settings panel here. Now, Soapbox supports a handful of different payment gateways. Once you've determined which gateway it is that you're using, you'll have to set up your account with them if it's Authorize or Braintree or Stripe, etc. You're going to select the one you've chosen here, and then you're going to enter the credentials as given to you by that vendor. And then you're going to click Save Payment Processor Settings, and that's going to save your settings and connect Soapbox to your payment processor. So when folks make their donations, their credit cards get processed and the transaction gets recorded. All right, so let's dig into the donations page quick box here and just kind of do a quick overview of what we have here. You'll see we have a listing of up to 5 donation forms here. It's only going to show us 5 in the quick box because it is, after all, a quick box. It's not meant to be a comprehensive list of your donation forms. We're going to see that in a few minutes. So it's just going to show you the 5 that Soapbox feels that you're the most likely to want at any given time. Across the top here, you're going to see a link to get into this gear button. Will take you into the global configuration for the donations app, and we're going to look at that in just a minute. You can click the View All tab, and that's going to take you to the list view. That's the comprehensive list of all of your donation forms if you have more than 5. You can add a new donation by simply clicking the button here. Now for each one of our listed items, you can customize the US URL. Now you'll also be able to do this from within the donation form edit panel, and we're going to see that shortly. But as a shortcut, you can do that right here, and you're just going to put in the URL that you want to. So it's going to be your root URL, which in this case is engagetraining.nonprofitsoapbox.com/ and then whatever you put in here is your page link. And then the page title, which is really just the title of the link. All right, and you're going to save that. So you can customize the URL from right here. You can click View, and that's going to take you to the front end view that we were just looking at a few minutes ago. And you can click right into the edit form for that particular that particular donation form. So that's the basics of our quick box here. Now that we understand that, let's go ahead and look at the global configuration for the donation form. So to get into global configuration, you're going to click this gear. Or once you're in the donations app properly, you can click the configuration tab as you see here. Now, the global configuration is a set of configurations that are going to apply to all of your donations forms. That's why it's the global configuration. So anything you see in global configurations, you can have confidence that once you set it there, it will cascade out to all of your donation forms. However, it's important to understand that you are able to override any of the global configurations if there's a matching configuration in the donation form itself. So, for example, say we want to enable the PayPal button in general. In general, we want all our donation forms to have the PayPal button as an option. So we would click yes, and we would put in our PayPal email address. Great. So that's going to apply to all of your donation forms. However, if you have a particular form that for some reason you don't want to accept the PayPal payments, you can, on that form, turn off that option, and it's going to override the global configuration setting for that specific donation form. All right, now that we understand how the donations global configuration works, let's go back to the Quickbox. And I'm going to get back to that by clicking the app launcher here and click the control panel card. And that's going to take me back to the front page, the control panel of the Soapbox administrator, and back to our Quickbox here. So let's take a look at the list view now that we kind of have a good overview of what we're seeing here on the control panel page. So we're going to click the View All tab, and that's going to show us all of our donation forms that we have. And you'll see we have a few more than 5. We have 9. That's not a huge number. If you have more than 20, it's only going to show you the first 20 here, but you can adjust that by coming down here and clicking whatever number you feel you want to look at, all the way up to all of them. But we'll leave it set at 20 because that's more than enough to see what we've got. So this is the list view, and while you're on the list view, you can go ahead and use the filter here. If you have a large number of donation forms, which in our case we don't, so it's not really that necessary in our case to use it, but in yours you may have many, many, many donations forms, and so to zero in on the one you want to edit, that can be helpful. You'll see each of the donation forms listed. You'll see their title, whether or not they're published, who the author is, and the created date, and the ID number of each one, of course. You can publish or unpublish them either by selecting them here by a checkbox and clicking the desired button, and that will unpublish them. Or you can publish or unpublish them individually just by clicking the icon. Super simple. Okay. You can create a new one from here. You can edit existing ones either by clicking the checkbox and clicking the edit button. You can also get to it just by clicking the name of the form. And then, of course, you can copy or delete an existing form. So that's sort of an overview of the list view here. Let's go ahead and at this point, we're going to look at how to edit an existing donation form. And like I said, to do so, the easiest way is just to click on the donation form itself. And that's going to open it up in Edit View. Now this view is going to look very similar to the Create view that we're going to see in a few minutes. So I'm not really going to go into a lot of the details here as far as editing, because we're going to see what all of these parameters do when we're creating our own form. Let's go into the list view again. And let's go ahead and start to create our new donation form. Now we're going to do that by clicking the New button. And that's going to take us into the new form, the form creation panel. Now I usually prefer to think of this as working through these tabs from left to right, and each tab from top to bottom as you go through. That's kind of an easy way to sort of organize your thought process as you're building your donation form. And the very first thing I like to do is to set the title. And we'll call this the April Fool's donation form. How about April Fool's Day? There we go. So what I usually like to do is give it a title first and then click Apply. Just a word about save or apply. Save will save the changes you've made and then send you back out to the list view, while the apply button will save the changes you've made and then keep you right here in the edit view or the create view that you're working on. And of course, cancel will send you out back to the list view without saving any of your changes. All right, so we've given it a title. We can now customize the URL, and we were talking about this a little bit when we were looking at the quick view, or the Quickbox. So we'll call this April Fool's Day. So that's going to be our URL, and you'll see that how that works in just a moment. April Fool's Day will be the title. There we go. Now, already, as long as it's published, which it is, already we'll be able to take a look and see our donation form starting to take shape. Now, it's not going to be everything the way we want it to because we haven't adjusted or set any parameters yet, but you can see we already have a donation form here set up. All right, and you can see the URL, how that comes into play with the URL here. Great. All right, now published is whether it's going to be visible on the front end or not, which we do want this one visible, but maybe there's a reason you want to remove a donation form for a time without deleting it. You can unpublish it and it will no longer be available on the front end. Now, test transactions, we're not going to get too much into test transactions right now today, but generally, in order to do test transactions, you have to have three things. You have to have Soapbox connected to your payment processor, and your payment processor has to have a sandbox or a test account, and you have to be connected to that account. You want to set the payment settings parameter to yes for testing, and you want to set this to yes for testing. So you have to have those three pieces in line in order to do test donations. Generally, once your donation form is up and running, you're not going to be able to go back and test because in order to do that, you'd have to take it out of live mode, and so anybody making a donation would just be a test donation at that point, so you'd lose that donation. So this is great for getting things set up in the early stages until you're ready to set it live. So this is one of those three pieces that you'd want to set in order to get your testing to work in the early stages. The form layout, you can have it set to 1 column or 2 columns. We're going to leave it set to 1 column for now. Newsletter sign up, this is where, when we were looking at the front end piece, we could see the checkbox to allow them to sign up for your website or for your email or your newsletter while they're donating. You can show or hide that, and you can have it checked by default. We're going to show it because we want to see it. The hero image is only applies to folks using our peer-to-peer fundraising at this point, which we're not getting into today. That's a whole additional sort of add-on to the donations form. It's a little beyond the scope of what we're talking about today. So we're going to walk right past the upload hero image section, but just know that unless you have the peer-to-peer fundraising option, that doesn't apply to your donation forms, either of these two fields. Now, as we go through things, you're going to notice that at the bottom of most of these slide-out panels, you're going to see a custom headings and labels mini panel or sub-panel. And this is going to allow you to change the labels or the headings or the subheadings of the section above it. So, for example, we could change this to say, would you like to receive our newsletter. So you can, whatever language makes sense to you there. And I'm not going to go through the customized headings and labels for each of the panels, but just understand that when you see a customized headings and labels tab, it allows you to change many of the headings and labels of the section above it. The page outro or page intro is going to be the text, sort of the introductory text for the form. So I'm just going to give it some lorem ipsum text here, some fico latino. And the page outro is going to be text at the end of the form. Outro is the opposite of intro, I guess. So we're just going to put a little less text there, but just a little bit there. And then the form footer is going to be footer information that it can be some legal information or disclaimer or a copy or whatever it is that you feel you want to have in the footer of the form. And so we're going to give that some lorem also so you can see. I'm going to call this footer just so you can tell the difference between what I've entered for the footer when we're looking at it on the front end and what I've entered here for the outro. Terms are going to allow you to leverage Soapbox's taxonomy component, which will allow you to create terms that you can then tag donations, forms, or events, and you can use that to help organize your content on the front end. The details, simple is just the author access level. Generally, you want your donations forms to be public, so the public can so anyone from the public can come and donate. Setting it to registered or special would require the portals add-on that we were talking about in the introduction to the webinar, and then the created date for the webinar as well, or for the for the donation form as well. Metadata information is just going to be search engine optimization information that's there if you'd like to use it. And then finally, Google Analytics. You can fine-tune your site, your Soapbox-wide Google Analytics to collect extra data for your donations forms. And this is where you're going to enter that. All right, so now that we've finished the first tab here, which we have, congratulations, we finished the first tab. We're going to click the Apply button. And let's take a look at things in the front end and just kind of see how things are shaping up. Now you see our long intro text here, because that was all that lorem ipsum faco Latino I put in there. We're still got our contact information, but now you can see this has been updated to say, would you like to receive our newsletter? We don't have any amounts showing up yet because we haven't set that up yet. But we do have our outro here, and we have our footer text here below the Make a Payment button. All right, so that's our first tab. That's the Basics tab. And next we're going to set up our contact information. So there are 3 fields that are always going to be required: the first name, last name, and email address. Beyond that, we have a handful of standard fields you can add. You can also add custom fields. Now, custom fields, there are 2 types of custom fields. If you're not using Salesforce integration, you can add these simple fields here. They're going to be text fields. You don't really have a lot of flexibility. You can change the field label, and that's about it. But if you are using Salesforce integration, you can add any Salesforce field from the leads object and then map that from the leads object to your opportunity, your campaign member, or your contact, whatever it is that you're going to want that data to eventually end up. So to add a custom field, you're going to click the Add Salesforce Element button, find the field in the drop-down here, and then fill out the rest of this information if you want a default value, or whether you want it required or hidden in the access level, etc., to add a custom field to your donation form. And that's going to be added to the contact information section here. All right. Boom, that's 2 tabs down. We are rolling here. Okay, so we're going to apply this. Now you'll see each time we click this, Salesforce integration is enabled, but no Salesforce campaign has been selected. For now, that we're going to get that every time, because until we integrate this form with Salesforce properly, we're going to continue to see that and just ignore it, because we know we're going to set that up in a few minutes. All right, so the next thing we want to set up is the payment options. And to do that, first we're going to choose frequency. Now we have one-time payments and we have recurring payments. You can have both on a form, or you can have one or the other. You don't have to have both. So the frequency amount options. So this is basically what's going to be displayed when they first open the page. So we'll say we want to show both, and we want the frequency selector to be before. So and we'll see what this means in just a minute. The frequency options order, I want one time to be shown first, and I want the touch buttons instead of the radio buttons. Touch buttons are a little nicer, I think. That's what we see here. These are touch buttons. I'll tell you what, I'll set radio buttons so you can see what they look like, and then we can go from there. And you can choose a default amount as well to be set. Let's set up our one-time payment amounts, and this is really simple. One-time payment we want to show, and we want it selected by default. That's fine. And predefined amounts, so let's say for one-time amount we want $100, and right, and $200, and for our big rollers we'll say $1,000. And you'll note we can add a level code to each one of these, which is additional information that you can use on the Salesforce side. You can also have, say you have 2 amounts. Maybe you're using the donation form to accept membership, so you have a gold member and a silver member. And maybe for some reason gold and silver are the same amount, but you could have gold and silver like that. So you would determine, even though they were both 100, you would know that which one was for which. Let's call this bronze. And let's make it 50 because it doesn't really make sense if those are the same. And then gold is for, how about that? Okay. Amount option, we want to set it to horizontal in this case, but you can have it set to vertical. And custom amount field, we want to show. And custom amount level code, we'll say is custom. All right, so let's take a look. And I like to kind of keep an eye on things as we're going and check back and forth. And you get into a little rhythm as you're setting it up. So now we see our donation amounts. And this is what the radio buttons look like. They're great. They're fine. Some people prefer those, but personally, I really like the touch buttons. So we're going to go back to the touch buttons. You can see those here now. See, aren't those nice? They're so nice. Okay. So now we have our one-time payment set up. One thing I do want to share is you can, and as you see, I've got the dollar amount in there, and so that's what shows up exactly. But you could have a label here too, and you would do that by doing the dollar amount, semicolon, and then after the semicolon is what will appear on the button itself. So we've got $50 bronze member, $100 silver member. Something tells me I've done this before because you really love us. How about that? Okay. And you're going to apply that. And then just to see what that looks like. So you can customize what it says on the button. All right, so let's set up some recurring payments. We're going to set it up for monthly recurring payments. Recurring payments, we want to show predefined amounts recurring. So let's give it $2. And we'll call it $2. $5, we'll call it $5, and $10. And you can do the same thing with the semicolon trick, but I'm going to leave it as it is. Okay, orientation amount also horizontal, custom field show, custom level code, custom recurring. How's that? All right, so let's take a look at what we've got now. And there we go. You see our recurring monthly amounts. Great. The dedication information is it's simply a matter of turning it on or off, and then which of the fields you want to show. It's important to note that I think that Soapbox doesn't, if you set a notification, Soapbox doesn't notify the honoree or the memoriee. But what it does is it gives you the information so that you can contact them in whatever way makes the most sense for you. So if it's sending a handwritten letter or a telegram or email or a postcard, whatever works for your organization. The billing information is basically whether or not you're going to accept credit cards. And this is where we were talking in the global settings. This is where you would override the PayPal button global configuration. But you're seeing here, we're saying, let's use the global configuration and inherit what that is. Tax exempt status, if you want to set that to yes or no. And then transaction description is a little bit of text. Let's call this April Fool's donation. So that's a little bit of text that will be sent to the payment processor and will also be sent over to Salesforce. And then finally, transaction fee coverage, yes, and we'll say 1.2%. And it's just as easy as that to allow your donors to help offset the transaction fee. So we're going to click apply now, and we should see everything pretty darn well set the way we want it. All right, there we go. We've got our intro text, we've got our contact information, we've got our dollar amounts for one-time and monthly payments, we've got our payment forms, we are accepting PayPal here. We're all good to go as far as setting up the form itself. Now what happens after they submit the form? So we're going to work on that in the Messages tab. So the first thing we're going to set up is the confirmation email. This is the email that goes out to the donor after they've donated. You can opt to either send or not send or obey the global configuration. I know in this case, the global configuration is set to send. So that's what we're going to do here. So you're going to enter the from name, the from email address, and send carbon copy and send blind carbon copy allows you to send a copy of the email to yourself. So it'll go to the donor, but you can also have it sent to you or one of your staff members so you can kind of keep track of who is donating. The email subject, thank you for donating, whatever you're going to enter there, and then the email body. Now, once you've got your text in here, you can apply bolding, italics, you can underline, you can add images. Do remember that this is going in an email, so whatever your normal best practices are for email content, I would limit yourself to that here. There are also some merge fields that you can add. If you mouse over the email body label here, you're going to see a long list of merge fields that can be added, and any of these things can be added into the form. For example, thank you name for donating, like that. And then, of course, it will insert the person's name as they've entered it on the donation form. So then that's going to send them their confirmation email. You can also send a separate email to yourself or to your staff, and this can be a simpler affair. It can just say, another donation, woohoo, and then again you've got the merge fields here that you can add the name, the amount, whatever it is that makes the most sense for you to receive as data in this email. And again, you can choose to do it or not. You can send it to, it's automatically going to go to anyone who is set as an admin to receive admin email, but you can also send to additional email addresses and set your email subject there. Now, after they donate, in addition to the confirmation email going out, they'll get redirected to a page. And you can either send them to a custom link. Maybe you have a page on your website that has some thank you information or more information that you want them to have after they've donated, or a special link that you want them to go to for whatever reason. You can enter that here, or you can use the default Soapbox thank you page. And again, you're going to give it a page title, page text, which again has a limited set, but it does have some merge fields that you can include in the thank you page message. And you can also add some invitation text for non-logged in users. Maybe you're going to invite them to register, or if they're not a known user to you, there's separate actions you can ask them to take in that way. All right. So that is the Messages tab. And next we're going to look at the Layout tab. Now if you think of each of these sections as a box, you can determine what order that those boxes will come in. So let's say we really want the donation amount stuff right at the very top, right under the intro text, so that they have less to read before deciding whether or not they're going to donate. And you'll see, so right under the intro text now, we have the amount and then the contact information below that. Okay, so that's how you're going to adjust the layout. All you really need to do is grab the little plus sign here and move it up or down as desired, and then click the Apply button. And finally, we're going to look at the Salesforce integration. Now, this site, this account is set up by default in the global configuration to be integrated with Salesforce, so I can leave this set to use global config. Do I want, and it's going to ask me if I want to display Salesforce errors. Now what this means is occasionally Salesforce will send an error back because there was some problem saving the data on the Salesforce, and assuming you're using Salesforce integration. Now this doesn't have anything to do with the payment processing. It doesn't have anything to do with accepting the the donation or logging it in Salesforce, just the recording of the donation in Salesforce. So to avoid showing your users a big scary Salesforce error code, we're going to set this to no. Why would you ever want it set to yes? Well, early in your setup, you may have some troubleshooting. You may be trying to figure out why transactions aren't being pushed into Salesforce. And it can be helpful to have it on. Note that we have a log that does store any error messages. So even if you have this set to no, we do have a record of which error messages are coming back from Salesforce. Now, donor chosen campaign. Generally, if you leave this set to no, you'll determine the campaign, the Salesforce campaign that this is going to be associated with. Setting this to yes will allow you to select multiple campaigns, and then the donor will be able to pick which of those campaigns they want to donate to. So say you have a single donation form, but you want people to decide, do you want to buy bikes for kids or I don't know, tents for homeless people, I guess. So they could choose which of the campaigns that they want to donate to. And to select the campaign, and really this is the thing that seals the deal with the Salesforce integration, is choosing the campaign. So you're going to have a campaign that you set up in Salesforce, and you're going to click the select button. Now you're going to see a list of all of the active campaigns in Salesforce. But we're just going to pick one in general here, because it's called general. So that's just how we select our campaign like that. And we've just selected the general campaign. So now once we click the apply button, we're no longer going to see that gray warning message, because even though we do have Salesforce integration turned on, we have selected a campaign, so that connection is being made. The 360 Match Pro option here is completely an optional. Some employers subscribe to the 360 Match Pro service. So if you're interested in 360 Match Pro, this is not a Soapbox product or anything, but it's something we do have integrated into the Donations app. So we've completely completed our donation form, and we'll see this now, the April Fool's Day donations form here in the list view, and this is what it looks like on the front end, so folks can come and donate it. It'll collect all the information, but what happens after they've donated it, and when I say it collects the information, what exactly does that mean? Well, let's take a look next at the Transactions tab to see a little bit more about that. So to see my transactions, I'm going to click the Transactions tab, and that's going to show a list. Hopefully for you, it will be a long list of many donors, but it's going to show you a list of all of the donations that have been made through your different donations forms. You're going to see the name of the donor, the email address, and the date it was created, the amount, the frequency, whether it was a single donation or a recurring donation, then whether it was a single donation, and if it was a recurring donation, was it the original, like the first initial donation, or is it one of the recurring monthly donations that has happened in the subsequent months? You'll see a transaction ID. You won't see a transaction ID for initial recurring, but you'll see it for a one-time donation and a subsequent recurring donation, which we don't see in here because this is not an actual live site. The subscription ID is going to help you identify in your payment processor which subscription it is if it's a recurring, and also in Salesforce there's a whole bunch of things that you can use this for to kind of keep track of your incoming opportunities. Which donation form this transaction came from, the transaction description. If you remember, we created a transaction description when we were setting up our donation form. And then finally, the Salesforce Lead Record ID. Now, the Salesforce Lead Record ID is the ID that Salesforce created when Soapbox sent the data over to Salesforce. A lead was created, and Salesforce would send that lead ID back, and that's logged here. That's just a good quick way to confirm that this transaction actually made it over to Salesforce. Taking things a little deeper, if you click on the name of the donor here, it's going to take you into the transaction detail view. And this is going to give you a lot of information about what happened with this transaction. It's going to tell you the amount, and all the stuff you saw on the front end. But in addition, you can see some of the payment date details, which payment processor it was, what type of credit card it was. You can see the contact information of the donor and also the Salesforce information. And this is what a good, healthy Salesforce data transaction should look like. You'll see the lead record ID, you'll see the converted status that tells you that the lead is converted, creating all of the subsequent records, the date that it converted, the contact that was created, you see its ID, the account that was created, you see its ID, and the opportunity that was created, you see the ID for that as well. You also get a little Soapbox information, including the IP address of the donor. And if you're using the peer-to-peer add-on, you get some additional information here. So this can be super helpful for troubleshooting, but also just for checking in if you need more information about a particular donor. You can also filter and search through the list of donors. Because you're such an amazing organization, and obviously you're going to be collecting a lot of donations, thousands upon thousands of them. But when you wanted to zoom in on one particular donor for whatever reason, this can be super handy as well. So you can just type in the name or email address of the donor that you're looking for here. It's going to pull their listing here. You can also choose which column you want to sort by. In addition, we have a much more robust filtering option here where you can set any one of these criteria. And for example, say you only want to see one-time donations, right? And for some reason, you're researching your one-time donations, and you can pull that out explicitly. Now, generally, assuming you're using the Salesforce integration, a lot of this data management stuff is way easier. I mean, that's Salesforce's bread and butter. So if you really want to deep dive into the transaction data, that's where you do it. But we do offer plenty of options here, especially if you're not using Salesforce integration to still dig down into your transactions. All right, and you can also export your transactions. It's going to export all of them as a CSV file. The export will obey the search that you've just done. So if you do a search and you pull up just the ones that you really, just the transactions that you really want to inspect closer via the CSV form, you can do that and then click export. And you can also add an offline transaction if for some reason you've taken a donation but you want it to be in here in the Transactions tab and get sent over to Salesforce. You can add that via that button. All right, to close things out, let's go back to the control panel. Thank you so very much for sticking around for our Soapbox Donations app webinar. Once again, my name is Brad Grahowski, and on the behalf of all of Soapbox and all of PigNet, thank you for coming by, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.